Number 10. Spectrum. Born and raised in New Orleans, Monica Rambeau gained her powers one day while working for the New Orleans Harbor Police when she was exposed and bombarded by extra-dimensional energy. Now classified as an alpha-level threat, she uses her newfound energy form to create energy blasts, alter her appearance, fly, and just a whole lot more. Given the name Captain Marvel by the media, she became friends with many superpowered folks early on and actually served as an Avenger for a period of time, becoming its leader at one point. However, she was forced to step down from the group after way too many injuries. Out of respect for Genus Vell, the son of the original Captain Marvel, she changed her name to Photon so that he could take up the mantle and carry on his father's legacy. Fast forward a little bit past her time with the Mighty Avengers, we see Monica, now known as Spectrum, join the newly formed Ultimates. However, after the second superhuman civil war, the team was disbanded by the government because of the way they dealt with conflict. They did later reassemble to investigate Eternity at the request of Galactus, and eventually the team was combined into Alpha Flight, and they are working to keep people safe to this very day. Now if you want to know more about Monica's origin story, check her out in her first appearance in 1982's Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16. Number 9. Wonder Man. One of the Avengers' more troubled team members, the ionic energy-powered superhero Simon Williams, who has a long history with the Avengers that goes all the way back to his debut. Now Simon inherited his father's company, Williams Innovations, and ended up running it straight into the ground with the help of competition from Stark Industries. He was then later arrested for embezzling funds from the company, giving him a bitter hatred for Iron Man that was then leveraged by the supervillain Baron Zemo as a plot against the Avengers. After being given powers by Zemo, however, Simon betrays him and chooses to fight alongside the team he once fought against. The exact nature of his powers isn't always clear, but regardless, this energy gives his body a massive power up beyond the capabilities of normal humans. One of the powers being, of course, super strength. Wonder Man's strength is said to be on par with Thor and even possibly Sentry, as one time he literally knocked out Thor with just one punch, and this is a result of the experiments by Zemo. Wonder Man is also imbued with ionic energy, giving him super stamina, speed, agility, and then flight and reflexes, as well as making him pretty much indestructible. Wonder Man can also absorb various forms of energy including antimatter, is able to project powerful energy blasts at will, and can even exist as pure energy if he wants to. Perhaps the biggest quirk of his abilities, however, is that he doesn't actually require any food, water, or even oxygen to survive, all thanks to his vast reserves of energy. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1964's Avengers number 9. Number 8. Quasar. Wendell Vaughn was once a run-of-the-mill S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who was placed in charge of guarding the quantum bands until one fateful day that changed his life forever. One day, AIM androids were sent to steal the bands, and William Wesley had unfortunately passed away just an hour before, so in order to protect them, Wendell put them on himself, and thanks to his lack of killer instincts, he was able to not only control the power of the bands, but also defeat the AIM androids. Now if you're not familiar with the power of the quantum bands, let me give you a bit of a rundown. The quantum bands draw quantum energy from the universe, and specifically it taps into the quantum zone. With this, Quasar is capable of controlling all forms of energy. Now similar to DC's Green Lantern, he can also use energy to create force fields, armor, and weapons, as well as fly, teleport into the quantum zone, and communicate via radio waves. As a longtime fan of the Avengers, Quasar was honored when Captain America personally invited him to join the team, and as a part of the team, he would go on to fight with them in the Kree/Shi'ar war. Unfortunately, Quasar's duties as the protector of the universe would limit his involvement thereafter though. Check him out in his first appearance as Marvel Boy in 1978's Captain America number 217. Number 7. Mockingbird. Born and raised in San Diego, Barbara Bobby Morse was first introduced as a highly trained S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and sidekick of Kazar. However, it wasn't until much later in the Marvel Team-Up series that Morse began using the Mockingbird alias. Now she doesn't actually possess any superpowers, however thanks to being injected by a formula, she was bestowed super strength, enhanced agility, and a regenerative healing factor. Couple all that with her extensive training in both hand-to-hand combat and weaponry, and that is a recipe for a valuable member of the Avengers. Now after eloping with Hawkeye, the two were notified of the formation of the West Coast Avengers, and several Avengers, including Mockingbird herself, left to join the new squad, and her and Hawkeye served as this cute little motivating force for the team. Skip ahead a bit and we see Hawkeye and Mockingbird train the new Great Lakes Avengers, and then during the wake of the Avengers receiving a United Nations charter, both active teams were actually revamped, and Bobby received only one vote to become an active member of the Great Lakes Avengers and ended up going back to the West Coast Avengers. Obviously there's a whole lot more to her story, so feel free to check it out for yourself, starting with her first appearance as Mockingbird in 1980's Marvel Team-Up number 95. Number 6. Crystal. The first Inhuman to appear on this list today, Crystal is a part of the royal family of Attilan and was subjected to the Terrigen Mist when she was very young, which gave her some pretty cool mental powers. Put simply, she's just basically the Avatar. She has control over the 4 elements, fire, water, earth, and air, which is done through psionic interactions with the substance on an atomic level. However, these 4 elements aren't where her control ends because she also is capable of electrokinesis, magnetokinesis, thermokinesis, and cryokinesis. During her tenure with the Avengers, Avengers taking place during the Operation Galactic Storm, she developed an attraction with teammate Dane Whitman, the Black Knight. This relationship was a bit complicated as Pietro was trying to fix their marriage, and the available and aggressive Cersei pursuing Dane at the time as well. Crystal recommitted to Pietro when he returned to the Avengers, and Dane and Cersei were soon transported to another universe, ending their thoughts of an affair completely. Crystal was among the Avengers who seemingly sacrificed themselves to end the menace called Onslaught. Actually transported to a different reality created by Franklin Richards, Crystal was restored when the heroes returned. When the heroes who were believed to be dead returned to Earth, Crystal and Quicksilver were quickly reunited and both helped the Avengers reassemble. Crystal, however, returned to Attilan where she remained beside the royal family, raising Luna. Check out her story for yourself, starting with 1965's Fantastic Four, number 45. Number 5. Miss America. Raised in a dimension outside of time and space known as the Utopian Parallel, America Chavez is one of Marvel's newer teen heroes, and she is a powerhouse to say the least. She's been a member of multiple super teams, including the Young Avengers, A-Force, the West Coast Avengers, and the Ultimates, and belongs to the younger generation of heroes who will potentially be the stars of Marvel stories in the future. Chavez gained her powers as a young girl from a magical entity that resided where she lived, and these powers are superhuman strength and speed, star portal creation which allows her to travel the multiverse, and of course, hypercosmic awareness alongside a number of other powers and abilities. When her dimension was threatened by black holes, her mother sacrificed themselves to save it, and Chavez ran away from home to travel across dimensions. This began her journey both literally and emotionally from girl to superhero. Since her introduction, America has taken part in many huge plot points, one of the biggest being her role in Civil War II. Now I won't spoil too much of it for you because it absolutely deserves a read, but let's just say she was smart enough to outsmart Captain Marvel and Spectrum. Appearing for the first time in 2011's Vengeance number 1, wanna check her out for yourself. Number 4. Captain Universe. Tamara DeVoe, aka Captain Universe, was once a woman who suffered from some pretty bad amnesia after a car crash. Although that's not the greatest outcome, she was also imbued with the power of the Enigma Force in the aftermath, so I guess that's somewhat of a bright side. Now what's the Enigma Force? Well, it is a mystical energy that passes through the microverse in order to protect and preserve the microverse. The wielders of this force are imbued with the Unipower, a facet of the Enigma Force that gives the wielder some pretty sweet powers. In Tamara's case, she was given the ability to manipulate matter and energy, and can also use Univision, which allows her to sense things on a subatomic level or at great distances, or she can use it to literally force someone to tell the truth. Her first mission with the Avengers was actually on Mars to stop the powerful beings Ex Nihilo, Abyss, and Aleph from terraforming the Earth in their image. When Tamara approached them, both Nihilo and Abyss recognized her as their literal goddess and the physical manifestation of the universe itself, so they immediately submitted and just agreed to her terms. However, Aleph did not and just straight up attacked her. Captain Universe easily burned the robot to ashes with a single touch, and the Avengers returned to Earth after a very easy job well done. That wasn't her only mission with the team though, but I will let you check that one out for yourself. Give her story a read starting with 2013's Avengers Volume 5, number 1. Number 3. Ares. Inspired by a Greek god of the same name, Ares was initially introduced as an antagonist to Thor. However, in 2006, Ares became more of an anti-hero, which inevitably led to him joining forces with the Avengers. Thanks to his Olympian physiology, Ares possesses superhuman strength, speed, stamina, durability, and agility, and is a true immortal, meaning that he can't die by any conventional means. Not only that, Ares has the ability to manipulate war, strife, combat, and all forms of conflict, including mental, physical, spiritual, and conceptual ones, regardless of the area and numbers involved, meaning he can control how they progress. Immediately following the superhero civil war over its legislation, Iron Man and Ms. Marvel traveled to Ares' construction site to recruit him for their new Avengers team. Agreeing that the heroes had ruined his civilian cover, Ares eventually agreed to join the team after Iron Man threatened to deport him to Olympus if he didn't register with the US government and promised a salary similar to that of his construction job. He played a pivotal role in Ultron's defeat and was also largely responsible for bringing down Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers. That victory was sadly bittersweet though, because it led to his death as he was just straight up ripped completely in half. Don't worry though, like I said, he is a god, so he was resurrected not too long after. Check out his entire story for yourself, starting with his first appearance all the way back in the Golden Age in 1942's Comedy Comics number 10. Number 2. Gilgamesh. Often referred to as the Forgotten One, Gilgamesh's heroic exploits have become so legendary over the millennia that he's often referred to as heroes of myth like Hercules and of course Gilgamesh, which kind of explains his name and why he goes by Gilgamesh. He is one of, if not the strongest member of the hidden group of superpowered beings known as the Eternals, an ancient race of genetically altered humans created by the Celestials. Alongside his teammates, he helps shield humanity from the vicious deviants, though Gilgamesh seems to have a very soft spot for protecting the people of Earth. He joined the Avengers in a time where their membership was at an all-time low, and although his time with them was pretty short, he was an absolutely vital member of the team. While all Eternals were born with an inherent set of superhuman abilities including super strength, Gilgamesh's strength far exceeds that of any of his counterparts, making him one of the most physically powerful characters in all of Marvel, with strength comparable to that of Hercules, Thor, and any other godlike being. As a result of countless millennia of training, Gilgamesh is also an extremely skilled hand-to-hand combatant, which coupled with his imperviousness to damage makes him one of Marvel's most dangerous characters. As is the case with most Eternals, Gilgamesh can also emit deadly beams of light, heat, and physical force from his hands and eyes, and can manipulate matter to a limited degree. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with 1977's Eternals, number 13. Number 1. Blue Marvel. Adam Brashear, aka Blue Marvel, was known as a child prodigy from an early age and has PhDs in electrical engineering and theoretical physics. After serving his time in the Korean War, Adam joined and led a project attempting to harness antimatter by creating a negative reactor, but unfortunately there was an unexpected explosion and both he and his partner Connor Sims were exposed to the radiation. Now Sims wasn't too lucky and his whole body just disassembled, but Adam was able to become a stable antimatter reactor and develop some pretty sweet powers. As Blue Marvel, he possesses super strength that rivals both the Hulk and Thor, can manipulate antimatter into energy blast, can fly, is pretty much invulnerable, and is also pretty much immortal as he ages much slower than the normal human, making him a serious force to be reckoned with. As a part of the Mighty Avengers, both the 1970s and the one led by Luke Cage and the Ultimates, we have seen Blue Marvel go up against the likes of the Deathwalkers, King Hyperion, and one time he even flew straight through Shumagorath's head because why not, right? Not only that, he has been seen able to withstand the blast of a hydrogen bomb and can even go toe-to-toe with Captain Marvel and come out relatively unscathed. So yeah, he deserves the top spot today. Check him out for yourself, starting with 2009's Adam, Legend of the Blue Marvel, number 1.
Number 10. Bob. Hands down the best name for a superhero sidekick, period. We have Bob. Making his first appearance in Cable and Deadpool issue 38, Bob is a former member of the terrorist agency known as Hydra. Hail Hydra. But most importantly, hail Bob. So how did Bob get into Hydra in the first place? What are you doing, Bob? Well, his wife Allison was giving him a hard time for not being able to get a steady job, so he figured he would work for Hydra. Classic. He wasn't a big fan of the organization though, only because they didn't have dental coverage. I mean, fair. Not a bad point, Bob. Valid point. Funny enough, Bob made a brief cameo in the 2016 Deadpool movie, where in the final battle of the film, he caught up with him, talking about Bob's wife Gail and her amazing tuna casserole, right before a quick headbutt knockout. But don't worry, Wade dragged Bob off screen to safety, or so we assume.
Number 9. Elsa Bloodstone. I can already hear the fans of Elsa Bloodstone raging in an uproar of that they know Elsa and how dare I put her on this list. And while yes, Elsa Bloodstone does have some very passionate fans, I will add that there are actually a lot of Marvel fans out there who are unfamiliar with her. Trust me, I know some pretty intense fellow comic nerds who have never heard of her until running into her in Marvel Strike Force. I'm looking at you, Dylan. So I thought it might be nice to talk a little bit more about this character who is super awesome, but tends to be less celebrated and not as well known to most. Elsa was born into a legacy of monster hunters. Her father Ulysses was a monster hunter before her, and so it was her destiny to defeat monsters while working alongside the good ones. Let's not forget that the Marvelverse also has a whole other horror and monster aspect to it as well. After all, Blade is also a part of Marvel. Have we ever gotten a Blade and Elsa team up, by the way? That is something I'd love to see. It should have already happened at this point.
Number 8. Jasper Sitwell. He made his comic book debut in 1966 in Strange Tales issue 144 and his cinematic debut in Thor 1. We all remember that agent Natasha Romanoff kicked off the building in Captain America Winter Soldier. That was the big reveal moment for the Falcon. But who was the agent that they were threatening? Well, Jasper Sitwell posed as a high-ranking S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. In reality, he was actually working for Hydra. This dude wasn't close too, like him and Coulson were the ones that got the call about Thor's hammer first landing on Earth. And he was one of the secret masterminds behind Project Insight. Could have been worse though. In the comics, Sitwell is actually Nick Fury's assistant, and at one point temporarily becomes the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Sitwell is played by Maximiliano Hernandez in the MCU, so if you want to see him on the big screen, you've got a little bit of catching up to do.
Number 7. Lindsay McCabe. Lindsay is the best friend of Jessica Drew. You maybe never knew that she had, Me personally, I thought Jessica's best friend might be Carol Danvers, and maybe now that might be more true, but throughout the later 70s to the mid 90s in the comics, LINDSAY MCCABE was it. She and Jessica met while living in New York at a group therapy clinic. Jessica liked LINDSAY because she was a tough, strong woman who wasn't afraid of Jessica or intimidated by Jessica's strange powers. Eventually, the two moved to San Francisco together when LINDSAY got the opportunity to study theater there. LINDSAY herself was an actress. LINDSAY would eventually learn Jessica was Spider-Woman and would also spend some time working with Jess when she had her private investigation agency. She would also try to help Wolverine in the disguise of Patch, whom she also knew previously, though did not actually recognize. She didn't know it was Wolverine, thought it was Patch. To save her friend Jessica when she was possessed by the Black Blade, aka the Muramasa Blade.
Number 6. Space Knights. Okay, these guys are awesome, and I hope we get a Space Knights show soon, or in my lifetime at least. They're fairly new to the game, having first appeared in Guardians of Infinity issue 2, only back in 2016. So a long time ago in the Outer Rim, a substance known as core was discovered. This substance gave a little bit of flair to the Perrin's warriors' weapons. So led by Horn, the warriors saved the planet from slavery. One thing to note about core that's rather important is that if it's sitting too long, it would corrupt the soldiers, so they always have to get a move on. Kind of like if I'm near chocolate milk at any point in my life. It's just eventually gonna corrupt me, and then I'm gonna have to chug all of it because I have no self-control as a human being. Get it away from me. Go, gone. So as time went on, more and more joined in on the warriors' efforts, and the group came to be known as, you guessed it, the Space Knights.
Number 5. PEEPERS. PEEPERS is one of those much lesser known mutants who has been around for quite a long time, but due to his unimpressive power set, pops up a lot less in comparison to others. Similar to Eye-Boy, PEEPERS' powers all kind of have to do pretty much with his sight or his eyes. A physical mutation made his eyes larger than most, so much so that they kind of protrude outward to an extent. He has enhanced eyesight, X-ray vision, and was sometimes even known to be able to fire optic blasts out of his eyes, similar to Cyclops, but not really on the same level as the X-Men team leader. PEEPERS' legal name is Peter Quinn, and while I haven't seen him pop up yet in the Dawn of X line, and hey, I've been watching for that, he has made a recent appearance in Marvel's Ravencroft series, where he appears to be working as an orderly or a medical assistant at Ravencroft. Pretty random.
Number 4. Ella Whitby. Making her comic book debut back in Deadpool Volume 2, issue 40, Ella Whitby was the doctor who helped Deadpool escape Crossmore Institution in England. But it wasn't long before she confessed her love for the Merc of the Mouth. Wade, however, didn't share the same feelings. Ella started to become a bit of a stalker, I guess you could say. She confessed her love to him again, only this time not so fashionable, with a homemade Deadpool suit attached to her body. So Deadpool starts to get curious and goes to her house. Turns out she's collected body parts of Deadpool. So Deadpool realizes that she's probably going for the Warden next to make Deadpool happy and all. So he goes to Warden's house, and just as he had expected, she was waiting there to kill the Warden in just the way Deadpool would do it himself. That is, by boiling tea made with ammonium nitrate on the stove with a plastic bag in the oven filling with gas. So after the explosion, Wade went back to her apartment, met up with a very burned Ella, and told her that he loves somebody else. Hashtag Wade the Heartbreaker.
Number 3. Amazing Baby. You might not know Amazing Baby just yet because, well, they're a super new character, but they also exist as a throwback to an older X-Men enemy, the Warwolves. Warwolves were an enemy of the X-Men that were almost shapeshifters. Almost. Their ability allowed them to drain their enemies of their life energy and then basically wear their skins like a suit, disguising themselves as that person. These Warwolves originally hailed from Mojo World and were sentient, wolf-like, metallic-looking creatures. Amazing Baby is a Warwolf pup that the Excalibur team in the Dawn of X line rescued from Cullen Bloodstone. Yes, relation to Elsa, who we talked about earlier. Cullen's her brother. The rescue pup was then given to Rachel Summers, who agreed to look after the little one despite how dangerous the mutants know this pup could grow up to be. She named her pet Warwolf Amazing Baby, and you can also see him pop up in the Dawn of X's X Factor series alongside Rachel.
And number 2, Macho Gomez. Making his debut in Deadpool Volume 2, issue 32, Macho Gomez is said to be the baddest, most feared operator in the galaxy, and his name sure does sound like it. He's a skilled fighter when it comes to shooting. He's got 6 fingers on each hand instead of 5, so he has that extra accuracy, you know? He's got that one little flip-flop over for stability. He's kind of like a Mandalorian bounty hunter in a way. He has the cockiness and the attitude to follow suit as well. When he was hired to assassinate the family of Reginald Harris, he was actually tricked into thinking Deadpool had already done the job before him. So naturally, he was kind of pissed and wanted to get back at him. Now, fighting Deadpool is usually a pretty tough task. So Macho Gomez lost the battle more than once. And after losing a battle to Deadpool, Macho was pushed into an escape pod and sent into the depths of space. Meanwhile, Wade took his place and replaced him at Funzel, even marrying Orkza. That's Deadpool for you. I don't know.
Number 1, CANDRA. I love how when CANDRA first appeared in the comics, she already came with a ton of backstory and power. The funny part was that although she threw her weight around as this supervillain of sorts in Gambit issue number 1, and was this immortal who had ties to tons of other characters, this was our first time meeting her. What an introduction. During her initial appearance, CANDRA was revealed to be the Benefactress, a character who had pitted the Thieves Guild and Assassins Guild of New Orleans against one another for centuries for her own purposes. She is also heavily implied to be a former lover of Gambit's, and we'd come to know her as a member of the often now forgotten Externals, an immortal, often villainous group of mutants who are insanely powerful, and not to be confused with the Eternals, which is a totally different group. And Externals as well cannot die. Well, for the most part. Remember Selene? She was also a part of the Externals, but Selene simply became much more popular, so we still know who she is.
Coming in at number 10, Jim Jaspers. He made his debut in Daredevil's number 7 in 1983. This dude's pretty wild. He started off as a British politician who served as a Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and then he was a leader of the Conservative Party, okay? So he was known for his anti-superhero stance. I mean, of course, your name is Jim Jaspers. You already sound like an annoying character, brother. Jim Jaspers. Jim Jaspers over here, sir. He didn't like soups because he wanted to keep Britain safe. Fair? I mean, you got a point. So of course, many people agreed with him and he won the general election. Bam, done done. But Jim Jaspers had some little Jim Jaspers tricks up his sleeves. He actually was a mutant with reality warping powers. Oh, these type of guys scare me. Like one bad day and then it's over. Like, they're crazy. I don't like those guys. So he's representing Haslop West and even gets knighted by Queen Elizabeth. So he creates this strike team whose job it is to gather up all the superheroes. And the slogan and all the posters says, "In your hearts, you know he's right. In our hearts, way to go after our souls." The best part of the capabilities of Jim Jaspers takes place in the Marvel UK storyline, Crooked World. So if you want to see the reality warping Jim Jaspers is capable of in full force, you gotta check that out yourselves. Also, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Jim Jaspers will be introduced in WandaVision and will be a secret villain working quietly. I'm calling it now. Check the date, that's it. Number 9, Jack-O-Lantern. 'Tis the season, so it's only fair to include Jack-O-Lantern. Making his debut in Captain America issue 396, he's a sick villain. Jason Macendale, who started off as a mercenary but was deemed too violent, so naturally after his departure he donned a new look and gave himself a fancy new evil nickname to go along with it. Jack-O-Lantern. I love his look, it's very Headless Horseman type, I like it. He was referred to as Mad Jack in Spectacular Spider-Man in the 90s, and he actually was Mysterio. This whole time? No, just in that iteration. So from 1996 and onward, starting with Spectacular Spider-Man 241, that's when Norman Osborn comes up to Daniel Beckert and pitches his new alter ego, Mad Jack. He shows him the new pumpkin head, very nice touch, elegant, nice and terrifying too. The fancy glider, the pumpkin bombs, the blasters. I can see a live action Jack-O-Lantern happening, for real. I mean, we're pretty much there with all the gliders and the gear. Once you throw on a Jack-O-Lantern into the picture, that's it, it's pretty much done. We have Hobgoblin, we have all those gliders. I think it's time for Jack-O-Lantern. Hashtag Mad Jack. Number 8, the Orb. This guy is quite fun, and believe it or not, he's been clearly referenced in the MCU. You just gotta keep an eye out for it. Puns, here we go. There's so many puns in this thing, by the way, it's gonna get nuts. These puns are wild. Yeah, he's got an eyeball for a head, and no, I'm not joking. Making his first appearance in Ghost Rider Volume 6, Issue 26, the Orb is, well, yeah, look at him. He was born with a head that was a giant eye, and if that's not already the coolest thing ever, I don't really know what is. His parents abandoned him at a young age because, well, of course they did. I mean, it would be quite the scene during childbirth. Oh, it's crowning. Yep, I think I see the head. Nope, it sees me. That's definitely a big eyeball. We gotta go. So naturally, he was made fun of. He couldn't speak either. I mean, he just made squishy noises. His massive eyeball head had powers. I mean, I hope, or else this guy's life is just a horror film. He can blast people with this red energy beam that shoots out of his eye thing. And he can even tell when somebody's thinking about him, which would probably be a lot of the time, considering that's what he looks like. So yeah, he was for sure referenced in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Right at the start of the movie when Scott is playing with Cassie, she has to use this retinal scanner thing. It's like in the cardboard fort. And she puts on this paper plate mask that looks like a big eye. And if that's not a reference to the Orb, it's a reference to Mike Wachowski, so one or the other, I got it. Number 7, Prowler. Hobie Brown. Now, when I mention the Prowler, of course, the first thing that comes to your mind is Aaron Davis, the uncle of Miles Morales, who played one of the villains in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you haven't seen it, it literally won an Oscar. It's amazing. Go watch it right now after this video. That is one of the best movies, period, not just animated movies, but best movies ever. Yeah, that's it. But I'm talking about Hobie Brown's Prowler. A little bit different. He made his comic book debut back in Amazing Spider-Man 78 in 1969. I like the OG Prowler more. He was a villain and then kind of like a hero, and he has an honest character arc, you know, like he was this guy who cleaned windows for a living. In the middle of a shift, this guy gets caught in the middle of a fight with Daredevil and Stiltman. So after that incident, he was inspired to make his own suit and secret identity to go along with it. So he made himself wrist and ankle bracelets to hold cleaning fluid and gave himself boots and claws to help climb. Not a bad idea at all. Kind of feels like you just want to be a villain. I don't know. That's a really weird way of doing it. Get a camelback, put it in there, then spray the stuff. I don't know, just an idea. So after he lost his job, however, it became clear what his next step had to be. Now I say had to because this was an honest guy who didn't want to hurt anybody. He didn't want to be a villain. He just needed to get by. Spider-Man gave him warnings too, like he didn't really crack down on him too hard. He knew that Hobie Brown wasn't a bad guy, and that's what I love about him. We have Aaron Davis in the MCU, played by Childish Gambino, and he's an arms dealer, so I'm hoping, as you guys are probably as well, that he makes a similar character arc becoming the Prowler, whilst also introducing Miles Morales in that MCU. And I feel like we're honestly days away from finding out who's playing Miles in the MCU, because they're filming, I think right now, the new Spider-Man. So comment down below who you think is going to be casted, and then once it's out, we can come back and check the comments and see who's right and who's wrong. And we'll shout out only the wrong people. We'll shame you. Shame. He also looks a lot like Spawn. I don't know, just saying. Number 6, Hyperion. The Superman of the Marvel Universe, basically. I mean, making his first appearance in Avengers issue 69 back in 1969. Nice. That's right, so when the Grandmaster traveled to Earth 712, he challenged Scarlet Supreme to a contest. So each fighter gets to kind of pick their own team. So the Grandmaster won using the Squadron Supreme. So he changed 3 people over to become Nighthawk, Dr. Spectrum, and the Wizard. Now of course, he still needed that Hyperion spot, so he created him out of extra dimensional matter. Spirit fingers. Even throwing in the artificial memories to go along with it. He was made to think he was Zibron, this space explorer from Yttrium, a planet from one of the microverses. Named after the Titan of Greek mythology, Hyperion actually went toe-to-toe with Thor. But, you know, with Thor being Thor and all, Hyperion ended up losing. The hammer was too much to handle. Another pun. Kind of. That was, we're pushing. Hyperion was shrunk, depowered, and imprisoned by Thor into this tiny glass globe. Don't worry though, Nebulon got him out. He's good. Number 5, Lyra. We go now to Earth 8009, beginning with Hulk Raging Thunder issue 1. We find Lyra Walters, or more commonly referred to as Savage She-Hulk. So she's from Earth 8009 in the 23rd century, and then at that time the Earth was split into 2 different factions. The guys' factions were like warriors, you know, they just looked up to heroes like Wolverine, just manly men, I guess, being men. And the women came together under the United Sisterhood Republic, and they were outgunned and outmanned. Literally. So Thundra got sent to Earth 616 where she met that Earth's Hulk and then had a baby. And then Lyra actually gets stronger when she's calm, which is of course not common when it comes to our green giants. That'd be amazing to see though. It just cuts to like Lyra reading a book and everyone's like, man, she's wild right now. Look at how strong she is. She's like, just jacked while she's reading 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Green! This is great, this is awesome. She's also able to tap into gamma sight, which means she basically can see the flow of gamma radiation. She's one with the gamma. Like all over the world too, not like within her personal range. She taps into all of it. So she becomes more skilled in this state because she sees everything and knows the next move. If she becomes angry, however, she will actually become weaker. So it's a fun little game of opposites. But at her weakest, she's still as strong as Spider-Man, so doesn't quite say a lot when you say the word weakness. Number 4, Songbird. Also known as Melissa Gold, Songbird made her comic debut in 1997 in The Incredible Hulk issue 449. She ran away from her parents at a young age, of course, and whilst developing a hard-knock life attitude, she ended up becoming a professional wrestler, just like the Spider-Gwen version of She-Hulk, funny enough. That would be a fun crossover. I don't know. She gave herself the stage name Screaming Mimi and joined the wrestling crew, the Grapplers. Now, in Marvel's television run, they could for sure bring this character in. It can happen. And it would be a blast. So the Grapplers were straight killing it, but they weren't making the same amount of money as the male wrestlers. That rings a familiar bell, huh? Doesn't it? So they took on a new job with the Roxxon Oil Company. Now, of course, the mission failed because Quasar came in and had to save the day. Melissa was given vocal cord implants that provided her with acoustic kinetics. Hence the name Screaming Mimi. You figured it out. She can make all these crazy weapons with just her voice, and even has the ability to craft herself wings and fly. Whenever I scream, my voice just cracks. Like, a lot. Number 3, Swarm. Okay, this next guy is an absolute unit. Fritz von Meyer made his debut in Champions issue 14 back in 1977. And as you can probably guess by his name, he's made of 1,000 bees. And as you can probably guess by his actual name, he's also a Nazi scientist. He used looted gold to pay for all of his projects. He's this Nazi beekeeper. I mean, what a character. One day he found a beehive that was quite different, to say the least. So Fritz made a device that would help reawaken these mysterious bees, which he thought were the end result of a mutation with a nearby fallen meteorite. So these bees ended up attacking and killing Fritz. Not the Nazi beekeeper Fritz! As you would think, his consciousness was spread out through all of these bees, and now you have this monstrosity bee guy. Just a man made of bees. I don't care what criminal you are, if you see a guy made out of bees, I'm tapping out, that's it. Like, there's no fight. If I was robbing a bank and I heard like behind me, there's no chance any amount of money is worth that pain. Puns are killing it. Number 2, Leapfrog. Yep, you heard me. Okay, picture this. What if when Cap said Avengers Assemble and Avengers Endgame, and it just panned through all those characters, there was just like a frog just chilling there, like a frog guy, just standing like, yeah, let's mess him up. All wet and frog-like. Vincent Patilio, of course, was an inventor. I mean, who else gets to this point in their life? Must be a wacky inventor. Making his first comic book debut in Daredevil issue 25 in 1967, he was a loser. In his own words, he said this, not me. He invented things, but nothing was sticking. Again with the puns, oh my god, this guy's wild. So until one day, he created these powerful leaping coils. And after that, he decided to, well, do crimes, because of course. And in one of his first villainous outings, he went to an airport and started leaping around and prevented planes from taking off. That's the worst villain move right there. Delaying my trip to Fiji? No sir, leapy man. This guy would be a great villain for a TV show. I feel like Falcon and the Winter Soldier could bring him in for like one episode. They have Batroc the Leaper coming back, so let's just do like a team of leapers. The entire episode is just Sebastian Stan looking around like. And lastly, coming in at number 1, Gamecock. Yep, I said that. Carlos Cabrera made his comic book debut in Captain America issue 183. He was a small villain who crossed paths with Steve Rogers a couple of times. And as far as powers go, he has none. But he dresses like this, so one would only assume he's the coolest, strongest, baddest dude in the game. He is, however, a great fighter. And I see how the inspiration came about. Cockfighting, the sharp claws, he's a great fighter. He also sports the claws on his feet and his hands. And if you think this guy wasn't already insane enough, he has a crew that he rolls with who also dresses up like chickens. I feel like they could use this character in an Easter egg easily. I mean, just having any sporting event with a chicken mascot and his name could be Carlos. Boom, then all of us would be like, that's the chicken thug, I know that guy. Maybe he could even call his gang the Chicken Nuggets. And whenever he wants to leave, he like snaps his fingers and he goes, let's dip. And the other chicken dudes are like, yeah, let's go rob somebody. I could use an extra buck. Yeah, that's like 7 puns. I'll leave now, that's fair, that's fair.